Hello, everyone. My name is Anita Bala, and I'm one of the co-founders of I Believe I Can. We are on a mission to empower young women, both college students and early career professionals, to dream bigger and to be the future leaders of tomorrow. And most of these students and young professionals are from marginalized communities and from smaller towns across India. As part of our mission, we match these young women with women mentors who help them with building real life skills, confidence, and purpose so that they can carry on successfully their professional and personal journeys. At IBIC, our mission, in simply said, is to women investing in women. One of the interesting things that we would like to bring forward is going to be showcasing Gen Z women entrepreneurs and founders around the globe. Today, I'm excited to present to you two such entrepreneurs who are not only making their lives impactful, but also wanting to spread and make an inclusive community with their mission, vision, and their pet projects. I'm excited to introduce to you two such women, Mukki Gill and Naomi Rajput.
Yes.
Guys, thank you for being here today, and really excited to have you both on our podcast. Why don't you guys give us a quick introduction, and then why don't we talk? I think one of the things that I would like to do is, as part of our podcast today, why don't we focus on how you guys started your journey? Let's reflect a little bit on your past, bring us to the present of where you are, and then why don't you guys look into the future?
Awesome. Well, thank you for having us, and I'm really excited to be here with Mukki. And I'll start us off. Speaking of how we got here, I think we were talking a little bit earlier, and you mentioned what was the key differentiator between you being so empowered and other peers who are maybe not as empowered, especially when we're talking about women founders and women in spaces that are typically male-centric historically. I think for me, the biggest differentiator was my upbringing. And I know we talked a little bit, but for the audience here, I grew up in a very liberal, equal mindset approach between me, my siblings, and my parents. I was always given agency, and it was a said condition that I was no different than my male sibling, my brother. And I think from a young age, my father especially instilled in me that I was held to the same standards as my brother, and I developed a greater self-image very early on. And then I didn't really understand the otherness as a woman that comes with entering the workforce until I had entered the workforce at 18. But hopefully, luckily at that point, I had already built this self-image of I'm no different than a man, and I'm no different than any other person in the room. I have merit, I have credibility, and I have something to say, so I'm going to take up space. I think that was really monumental for me. And so by the time I heard the otherness dialogue coming towards me, I had already kind of built this wall up saying basically I'm the same as you, and you're going to listen to me, and I'm here.
Amazing. That is amazing.
Do you want to back up and introduce yourself?
Yes, let me introduce myself. Hi everyone, my name is Naomi. I'm the founder and CEO of Eden AI. We make voice agents and do impact work. We make voice agents for medical vans and rural health centers so that patients have better access to care and faster access to care. These agents are voice-based, inclusive, are taking into account different accents, and the central approach here is to create more time for human care while we take care of the administrative scrappies. Using AI for good, bringing back human connection, using technology is what we do. And then otherwise, I make music, I'm a musician, I sing, I also do a lot of art. But yeah, a lot of things.
Right?
Awesome. Hi, I'm Mukki Gill. I am the founder and CEO of Soar. I'm also a fifth-year undergraduate at Northeastern studying mechanical engineering and history with a minor in science and technology studies. It's a mouthful. I started Soar about 3 years ago. Zor is named after my younger brother, Zor, who lives with Dravet syndrome, which is a rare genetic disorder that gives epilepsy and autism. So growing up with him and my mom, the lived experience I have is that and what it means to take care of and live with people who have severe disabilities, epilepsy, unpredictable seizures. And I knew that I wanted to translate that knowledge into something helpful to change the world for the better. I think that's all you can do when you grow up seeing such sadness, is you need to turn that into something
Positive.
actionable, exactly. So I'm grateful to say that here at Northeastern I've found my place in my community to be able to do what I want to do. And yeah, outside of that, like I said, I'm studying engineering, I'm a photographer, I love yoga.
Same. There you go.
I do too.
Yeah.
The yoginis.
Exactly, yeah. So lots of different hats, but I love them all.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Me too.
I think one of the amazing things is, you don't see a lot of young women founders who start when you're going into during the college life.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things, the fact that you both are women founders, that itself sets you both apart. But what is even more amazing is that you started your journey while in college and you guys are handling both at the same time. So before we kind of come into your present and talk about that, why don't you guys kind of reflect a little bit on your past? What actually, Mukki, you talked a little bit about your brother and how he got you started on this journey. Yeah. But if you think back during your teenage years or prior, were there inspirations, things that, led you to think, I'm going to do something more powerful than at that time? Or you had inspiration around you that led you to the journey where you are now? Maybe if you guys speak a little bit about that, it'll be really interesting for other young future leaders and entrepreneurs, because they can reflect on their past and then bring that to where they are now.
Yeah, totally. This is something my family and I always talk about. I'm the first person in my entire family born in the States. So that's new and interesting for my family to be digesting. Yeah. My folks were educated here, so I'm second generation educated, firstborn. And when I look at my family, I look at my grandparents, I look at my aunts and my uncles, every single person in my family is so hardworking. And I always wonder, where does that come from? Like, it's not in our bones, but somehow all my cousins, like everyone in my family, we put our heads down and we work. I think it comes back to who we are and who we come from. My grandparents, we're Punjabi, like I said, so our history is not an easy one considering recent events. And I think that builds a lot of strength, a lot of character, and a lot of resilience that I still carry today, which I'm really grateful for. My grandfather, when I was 8 years old, he took me to his ancestral village in Punjab. And we went to the schools, and those schools, they only exist because the government gives a small portion of money to keep those going, and if those schools didn't exist, the kids in the village wouldn't have educations. So they're the pillar of the community and the pillar of liberation for communities. And at 8 years old, I was there, and I came from my private school in Palo Alto, California, and was like, why do all these people look like me? But we have very, very different lives, right? I get a backpack and I get to go to school, and they don't even have tarps to sit on the floor, and they have to sit in mud in class, and there's nothing that's covering, and they don't have bathrooms. And so as a child, that was perplexing, and I wanted to see what I could do to help. I couldn't get a job, right? Fifth grade, what are you going to do? So my friends around me were raising money to get tickets to go to Disneyland by getting plastic water bottles and turning them in to get about 5 cents a bottle. So I was like, okay, that's the only way that I can access fundraising at this age, and it's easy to do. Let's do it. So my poor mom, every weekend for years, we would fill up the whole car with stinky recycling and drive it to get like $7 for a car full load of recycling. And slowly that's how I started raising money for the schools. And yeah, $7, $12 here and there, it adds up. It's not the most you could do. But at that age, seeing your actions turn into impact and having adults in your life trust that at the age you have the capability to have empathy for other people and take action on that was a true gift. And it built the mindset for me that, yes, there's problems in the world. I can't solve the problems entirely, but I can take action in my daily life to address those, and that can change things for the better. And seeing that as a child has just pushed me to want to keep that entrepreneurial spirit going for the rest of my life.
I second that. I think like early childhood experiences for me, I alluded to this a little bit earlier on, but for me, I think the agency my parents gave me in every single decision. At one point, we were switching schools. By the way, I moved around a lot. So I was in the States for a little bit, went back home to Mumbai, then California, and then Jersey. So I've been around a lot. And in every single decision, there was some sort of agency given, like almost like vote who wants to go to this school and like do that. And I think it was a lot of that decision making that primed my brain to be like, okay, I can take myself seriously and I can make decisions and be empowered to do so. And the other thing is, I was gonna say, you mentioned inspirations.
Yeah.
I think my mom, I think I grew up around a lot of strong women, especially my mom. I think she is, first of all, the most beautiful woman I've ever met, both like outwardly, but also just who she is in spirit. And I grew up watching her, you know, positive affirmations when she's looking at herself at the mirror, like, oh my God, I'm the prettiest woman ever, and, you know, dressing up with such confidence and speaking with such confidence, and she's such a light of a person that I think I had the greatest example to go off of. And then I'm in a lot of ways just like her. So I think those things really stick with you, and so grateful for her to be that person. I get to be her daughter,
Right.
which is awesome, right?
That is so nice to hear that, because I think young women need to know that they don't need to reach far to find an inspiration.
Yes.
They need to know that they can find it just looking around.
Yes.
And you know, even though I'm much older, every day I'm amazed at looking at my mother-in-law. She's 90 years old.
Yes.
She speaks impeccable English, even though she grew up in India, and she only has done up to 10th grade. So it's amazing to see that, you know, when the future generation, whether it is us or it is the, you know, the alphas or whoever they may be, millennials, alphas, they don't need to look far. I think that's the message that we need to send them. And the overarching theme that, again, IBIC and all of us have in common is empathy should be at the forefront.
Absolutely.
And with empathy and purpose, a lot can be get done. And I think that's what we need to be, you know, that's the message that we would like to deliver over and over again.
Totally.
And also remind ourselves on, you know, how we want to present ourselves. Having said that and set the stage for where we got our inspirations from, why don't you guys kind of go into where you are now? How do you see the present? What are the challenges that you're going through? Because there must be several of them, given the fact that you guys are entrepreneurs and students, and a lot of things that is happening in our society. You know, what are your headwinds? What are your tailwinds that is, you know, going on? And how are you guys, you know, coping with all of that? And, you know, maybe a couple of success stories that you might have and a couple of challenges that we can kind of keep it going.
Yeah, well, I can take this one. I think on a personal front, I grew up kind of multicultural. I was in Jersey, like I said, and then here in the States. So I think that moving around really did its number on me in a lot of ways. And I think cultural identity was the biggest gift I got out of that. So when I came here to Northeastern, speaking of wins, I didn't see an Indian community here that really embraced that multiculturalism. There was like the Desi community that's, you know, international, and then there was the American born Indian students, and they didn't really mesh well because, you know, one doesn't want to identify with the other for some reason. There's this awkwardness, and I think I took that and I said, okay, I need to do something about it. So now we created ICA, which is Indian Cultural Association. It has 2 chapters at Northeastern and also Arizona State University, and it's a 5,000 student member organization right now. that encourages intercultural and subcultural dialogue between these two communities, so we can all be united in embracing Indianness and not being embarrassed, really, because there's nothing to be embarrassed about. And I think that switch is what I wanted to do, and I did. And then other successes with Eden. Actually, when I started the venture, I was really not so happy with the administrative problems I was facing as an administrator, but more so for the patients. I feel like being a patient is already hard enough, and you have so many other struggles and kind of loads on you, especially caring. You were talking about caretakers before this. There's so much already things that you're taking care of, accounting for, and the paperwork is just another extra thing. And I think for me, the biggest mission with Eden is to get rid of that administrative load so that caretakers, patients can focus on their care and their relationship with their physician, and the physician can actually look at them in the eyes and be like, are you okay? Tell me what's going on, instead of typing away somewhere.
I think that's a big one, Naomi, because I think one of the biggest problems that patients have now is when doctors don't look at them and talk, because they're busy typing away. That
impersonalization,
the lack of personalization steps in. So it's amazing that your technology is going to be making a change to where we are bringing back the personalization between the patient and the doctors. And I think for the doctors, it's also going to be giving them back the time. We talk about AI giving back time, but I think that's one of those things where your technology is also going to be giving back time to the doctors, and so then the care just gets elevated so much more by doing that. So thank you. Amazing, and it's awesome to hear that.
On a similar note, at SOAR, we are revolutionizing epilepsy care and management for patients and caregivers through non-invasive and predictive solutions. So we're kind of focusing on two different things here, is daily life management and then long-term predictive health. So right now, a lot of my eggs are in the basket for daily management. We're developing a tool which allows it's an app that allows you to track your seizures, any kind of multimodal data that comes with that as well from your Apple Watch, calendars, and we create data visualizations based off of that. And one thing I realized, I did a clinic visit at the MGH Epilepsy Center. I only saw 8 patients, and in that much time as a fly on the wall, I realized a huge issue is that patients are not empowered with their own data. Patients come into these appointments, I think my last seizure was this, and I don't quite remember. And memory is an issue in the epileptic community as well, of course. And the doctors then are left to help the patient with very little information, very little administrative support. The electronic systems also are not serving us and doctors. So this glaring hole was, not only is there no tool to manage epilepsy on the day to day, everyone kind of just writes their seizures and medication changes on paper, there's no tools to inform those clinical conversations and to empower patients with that. So the app also we've created export pages, which basically allows you to export your data straight out of the app where you put everything in. So we've centralized and standardized that system. Now you can bring a PDF with our insights, going through those and creating graphs for you to bring into those clinical appointments. So it's a challenge that I think we really want to address as a patient-centered and patient-driven company, but it's going to take a lot of iteration to really be clinically integrated, I think.
I think just starting that process, Mukki, and actually creating an impactful tool for the patients, I think that is remarkable. Because as we talked about previously, being a caretaker of someone, as a mom, I know just having 2 healthy kids and taking care of them is not easy. And so if you have to think about, and add to that a child with some kind of, disability, and having to take care of them takes that much more time. Now, we're not only talking, the tool that you are proposing and that you're working on is not only going to be a game changer for moms with young children, right? Because this is going to be a game changer for across all age groups. And I think that's what is more remarkable. In this time and age where people's time is of essence, I think having apps that really make an impact and really help people because, like you said, all of our ability to focus is also getting shorter with TikToks and
Totally.
Instagrams and everything else.
Yeah.
So, it's a good point you made. When did I have my epilepsy, right?
Yeah.
When did I have my seizure? It's hard for us to remember. By the end of the day, we are like, oh, I've already forgotten about it,
Yeah.
right? And because life moves on, you have to move on. And so what to me is amazing is both of you guys are are having technology and working on truly life-impacting, life-changing technology. And it's not easy to do that. And so to me, that's what is remarkable. As being women, we're not trying to capture the low-hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
We are actually trying to make leaps and bounds on technology that is going to take a while for it to mature, but things that is absolutely needed. And I think that's what is remarkable about being a woman, is because we are more thoughtful about what we want to make an impact on,
Totally.
and not just do something for the sake of doing it. So thank you
Yeah.
for talking about. I think it's going to be enlightening for the younger generation to say, women to say, what should they be working on? How should they be making an impact in the
Yeah.
society?
And there's like something you mentioned earlier about the tailwinds, or the not so great part of this is, firstly, it's incredibly hard to manage student and business. I think, plus we're doing a lot of other stuff too, because we are just those kinds of people. But
I think you need that
Yeah,
to
I think
help
It's
balance.
Yeah,
exactly. They feed into each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, there's no balance, but okay. I think what I want younger girls especially to take is that there's really no limits to what you want to go for. I think people set their limits on you, and I know we were going to talk about like best and worst advice possibly. This is the best advice I got is, and this is just through observation, some people just loosely told me, is that people will place limitations on you because those are their limitations. It has nothing to do with your capabilities and your ability to produce or do something. So I think it's best and easiest to just trial and error it and find your own compass and your ceiling, and then break the ceiling once you reach it.
Yeah.
I think that's like a good way to approach starting something new, but also there is downsides where it gets really hard and it's very mentally taxing sometimes, but then you have to list your trade-offs. Am I willing to say no to X, Y, and Z to get X, Y, and Z? Mm-hmm. If yes, then keep going, and if no, then be honest with yourself and manage expectations. I think that's the way I do things, and it's helped me so far. So, yeah.
Yeah. I guess on that note, something else that I think was good advice for me, and I've noticed in my time so far, is what makes you stand out, what makes you good at something is being good or being knowledgeable about something that you can't learn in one college class or in an online course or whatever, right? And people are, I feel like, spending a lot of their lives searching for themselves, trying to find that thing that they can contribute.
Yeah.
For me, it was given to me, right? My brother was born with this, and this is how I found it. And I think what I've learned from that is not only am I really grateful to have been given that life passion and this perspective into something that I can help people with, but your lived experience is that.
Yes.
Right? What you have lived through, what you've gone through, what you've experienced, what you've changed, what you've seen, that's what's going to inform your passion, and that's going to be the unique thing that you can contribute to the world. And I really wish that people spent more time identifying the issues that they've faced, the problems that they've seen, things that they've been impacted by, instead of searching for the next, I mean, respectfully, like the next, big AI data farm or something. Like, what can you as an individual contribute from your experience? Good, bad, ugly. That's, I think, how change really happens. And for me, the passion will never disappear. The drive will never disappear, especially coming from that lived experience. So it's
no
it's a
better
fulfilling
user
cycle.
research.
Yeah.
Totally.
Wow. Mukki, you're probably a Gen Z sitting in Gen X sitting in a Gen Z body right now. The way
Wisdom
I truly have to say that. So, let's talk about something that is a passion for me and for my company, which is mentorship.
Tell us.
You guys have done amazingly well, I'm assuming, just hearing you both talk.
Oh, thank you.
Just from, having mentors whom you may not have considered as mentors. Now, as young women look around them, how should they be thinking about mentorship, and how should they be going to seek it, to absorb it, and then utilize it for their own purpose? How do you guys think about it?
I got like 3 things.
You go first.
So I think first you have to be incredibly unapologetic about it. And that doesn't have to be you become the loudest voice in the room, but if you know that you're seeking mentorship for a certain something, then have no problems vocalizing that. There's no shame in that. So be incredibly, what's the word?
Bashful.
Shameless is not the word, but that's what's coming to mind.
Frank, yeah.
Unapologetic.
Yeah.
Unapologetic about you're reaching out to someone and they can say, hey, I'd love to chat, or they would never respond, but either way, the trying is the first step. And then the second thing is when you do reach out, you have to assess if they're the best mentor for you or not. There are some personality mismatches. There are some people who initially might have seemed like a good fit, and then you have a conversation and they're not really uplifting. So you kind of have to assess if it's worth my time to talk to this person, not because of their professional capabilities and background, but who they are as individuals. I can respect someone professionally, but not respect who they are as a person. And that's incredibly important when you're looking for mentorship. It's not just about who has the highest accolades or the highest position. It's about who has the highest morals that I want to replicate.
To add to that, I couldn't agree more. I think often when you're told about mentorship, you're like, okay, find the director, email them, cold email them, get to the top, talk to them. Okay, sure, that's a strategy.
Yeah.
How many other people are going to be trying that strategy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Everyone. I think what's really been helpful for me is figure out what you need first. What are you looking for? What are you missing? What research do you need to fill? Then look for people that have experience in that. Identify them. And, like, for example, I would much rather have a continuous advisory relationship or mentorship with a epilepsy fellow than the director of the epilepsy program.
Totally.
The reason is to get to talk to that director is going to be 4 months of going back and forth to try to schedule a 30-minute call.
Right.
But the fellow, I know will respond to my email in 20 minutes, and we can go back and forth, and then they can get involved with what I'm working on. So it's not just the name of the person, it's what can you gain from them and their experience. Like, what are you looking for at the end of the day? Match that, and don't waste people's time.
And probability of access, right?
Exactly.
I think it's very important because people will be emailing, like you said, these higher ups, but then who's most accessible to you, and how fast can you get them to help you?
And you catch someone in their early career, they're much more likely to go down the path with you than someone who has an established career and an established lab focus.
Yeah.
Right? You could, if someone at the beginning of their career, oh, maybe I'm actually interested in doing my focus on this, and then you loop them in, and then you're working on it together.
Yeah.
So I guess also thinking about partnerships in that way is really important for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's great piece of advice for youngsters, especially now. When you're thinking about college students and you're thinking about early career professionals, I think one of the biggest impediments right now in the corporate America is, and probably even in India, is you're working remote. And when you're working remote, many of them are hesitant to reach out to the higher ups because they are like, oh, we can't see them. We're not sure how busy they are. So starting 1 or 2 levels higher and then working their way up would be a better way, because then they can iron out their kinks, they can understand what they need, and then, do a step function, still have higher purpose, still have higher goals, never, lower that standards, but then, go in step function and try to seek the knowledge that they're seeking.
And then you can get a warmed introduction
Yeah.
to those higher-ups once you have that
that's a
relationship
good idea.
established,
Yeah.
right? And that means so much more. That'll go so
Yes.
much
Yeah.
further.
Absolutely.
And then
absolutely.
once they do go higher up and talk to that main person,
Right.
I think key information here is that a lot of even young students, mentees think that why would that person want to talk to me? Who am I? But I
Right.
think you underestimate the value of freshness and
Yes.
newness. Those people are meeting the same kinds of people constantly who are asking so much other stuff of them.
Right.
But then here you are, nice new fresh face with passion, with integrity, with like curiosity and knowledge. That's what they really are, interested in.
Yeah.
So bring that to the table. Bring them a good time and a good conversation. I think that goes a long way, and people underestimate how much not so great conversations they're having otherwise. And then here
Yes.
you are with an awesome chat for 30 minutes. They're
Yeah.
going to remember that and they'll
Yeah.
appreciate it.
It's
Yeah.
about what you represent.
Exactly.
And at that
Yeah.
point, you represent a 21, 22-year-old founder at the beginning of your career. And if you are someone who's in their 50s looking back, that's exciting
Yeah.
and
Yes,
refreshing and a
absolutely.
breath of fresh air. So the number of times people have said that in a conversation,
Yeah,
they're like,
totally.
to be 21 again. I'm like, oh, geez.
I'm sitting here thinking the same thing, right? Because you see yourself
Yeah.
in the youngsters, whether I see
Exactly.
them that in my kids, even though they're boys, or I see them in young women such as yourself, that is true, that's so true. Nothing's short of that.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's one of the reasons why I like your enthusiasm and the fact that you guys are actually doing this while in college and wanting to continue to do this.
Yeah.
So as we come to a close, what are some pearls of wisdom that
Oh
you
my-
would like to
gosh.
offer? Or even, not even pearls of wisdom, I would say a couple of simple things that you think, either your peers or students who are looking up, to folks such as yourself. Let's take a teenager, a 16-year-old, 17-year-old is saying, what do I want to do? What can I do? How should I do? How should I think about it?
Yeah.
What would be a couple of simple things that you would say, simple steps that they should take?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because right now the society is filled with negativity.
totally.
What I can't. I
Yeah.
hear so much of it, and I'm like, we need to reframe that.
You
and
can,
say,
you can, you
yes,
can.
exactly, right? So what can you?
Yeah.
Well, to start, I think the most important thing, and this is the hardest part of it, I'm always going to be working on this for the rest of my life, is it's just reframing that.
Yeah.
You've chosen those can'ts. You can also figure out what you can do, right? And then you can start there. And then see how those can'ts will become cans. It's shocked me how that's worked in my life so far, and I hope it'll keep going. But I guess if I was going to talk to my 16-year-old self or someone in my shoes at that time, I'd go back to what I was saying before about lived experience. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to use technology to do good. And that there was this really big problem in my life where my brother was having these seizures and hitting his head, and my mom and I can't take care of him and keep him safe. And I said, why can't those go together? And that's it. But, everyone has their own experience, their own way to contribute to the world. And I truly think it's something that you develop as you grow, not something that you're, born with.
Right.
And it's just recognizing what excites you and following that. Excitement in you is your subconscious talking to you in ways that you may not comprehend. And for me now, sometimes random stuff excites me, and I'm like, okay, that's how I get to learn more about myself and what's going to keep me going.
Yeah.
So follow those things. It'll all work out, and turn those can'ts into can. How can I? That's what my mom always says. How can you? Not you can't. How can you?
That's actually great. I'll use that.
Thanks, Mom.
Exactly. I think I need to use that too.
Yeah.
I think for me, first of all, 16-year-olds listening, that's not a pleasant age to be in. I do not wish going back to that age at
Never.
all, never.
So
in my
let's step
life.
that up to an
Yeah,
18-year-old.
18, whatever that age is, even
gets
18,
better.
even 18 wasn't that great, but 22 is fine right now. I think I hear you, I see you. It's very hard to be in that age demographic, and you're doing just fine. Hang in there, it gets better. That's number one. Number two, I think Mukki alluded to this. I think grit, resilience, integrity are all exercised muscles. I did a TED Talk on neuroscience of grit and
Very
neuroplasticity.
good one.
If you want to watch it, a lot of other people
We
have
will post
watched
that
it.
on our link down below.
It's a good one.
It's an exercise
yeah.
muscle. The more you persevere, the
Yeah.
better
It gets.
it gets, and the more you persevere, the easier harder things get. So I think always remember that the hard thing is not going to get easier, but it might just become easier in the process. And then the other thing, just pearls of wisdom, I think, is I think one that I live by is, which I talked about earlier, is that don't let other people's limitations or projections be a dictation of how you lead your life. I think with changing times and technologies and efficiencies, something that would have been incredibly impossible and inefficient to do, now you can do it while eating your food or like listening to a podcast and also working on a project. I think our attention abilities are also wildly different between generations. So what you're able to do maybe is impossible for someone older or even your peer, but
Right.
don't let that limit you. Is what I would say.
My last thing is, if you want to do something cool with your life, or if you want to contribute to knowledge, or just do anything
Right.
hard work takes hard work. I have to remind myself this every single day when I'm like, oh my god, I don't want to sit and do emails again for like the 90th time this week, or I don't want to work on my homework right now. But if I want to do hard things, it takes hard work. And you have to live through those moments. And yeah, it can get easier, but it's never going to be easy.
Right.
Okay? Like, you always are going to have to work hard.
Yeah, totally.
It's good.
Yeah.
It feels good, you know?
Actually, that's a great thing to say. Hard work takes hard work.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of misconception out there,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That things are easy
Just
and things
happens.
and it happens and things need to get easier. Because when people look, when they keep scrolling and looking at TikToks and
Yeah.
Instagrams,
Oh, all
they
the
think,
millionaire videos.
Exactly.
and they think that those videos take very little time to do.
Exactly.
But, it takes a lot of hard work to get those videos to make that impact and
Yeah.
the effect. And I think that's what all of us need to remind ourselves.
Yeah.
Not just your generation, even our generation and the future generations all of us need to remind ourselves that things are, can be hard, but things can also be easy. And life
Yeah.
is, it's like a mountain or a valley or
Yeah.
something like that. You have your ups, you have your down, but at the end of
Yeah.
the day,
It's like
things
the
will
snakes
all
and
work
ladders
out.
games.
Yeah,
And hard things can be good.
yeah, exactly.
Right? Like,
exactly.
they can exist together.
Otherwise, it's like the winters and the springs, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to appreciate the spring till you have the winter and the hard snow and the icy
Yeah.
storms. And at the same time, it's vice versa.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end this conversation and say thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you.
for
I'm
having
wishing
us.
you both the very, very best.
Thank you.
And we're going to be seeing future millionaires from you, Naomi and Mukki, and all the doctors, all the patients, and looking forward to seeing you guys, shine through, and wishing you the very best.
I
And thanks so
appreciate
much
you.
for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.